Ciao a tutti, sono Cinzia Morandi, la portavoce di Filmini, unit di Filmmaster Productions, caratterizzata da una struttura produttiva agile, flessibile e cross-mediale che più si discosta dal tradizionale formato televisivo a 30 secondi. Noi di Filmini siamo alla costante ricerca di nuovi talenti e nel corso degli anni abbiamo avuto una rapida crescita dedicandoci alla creazione di contenuti di comunicazione che spesso escano appunto dal classico advertising. Siamo qui oggi a presentarvi con grande orgoglio ed entusiasmo David Karlak, che è un giovane regista di grandissimo talento, non a caso fa parte del roster di RSA, casa di produzione di Ridley Scott, ma soprattutto David è uno dei massimi esperti di VR, la virtual reality di cui tutti noi ormai sentiamo parlare da parecchio tempo e di cui stiamo per scoprire tutti i segreti. Proprio per le sue competenze tecniche e le sue capacità registiche, David è stato coinvolto e scelto in prima persona da Ridley Scott per realizzare Alien Covenant in Utero, che è un'esperienza a 360 gradi nata per promuovere l'ultimo capitolo della famosa saga che tutti noi conosciamo. Qui sul palco di IF approfondiremo insieme a David il futuro del VR e le sue possibili applicazioni all'interno del mondo della comunicazione, quindi diamo tutti insieme un benvenuto a David Karlak.
Grazie a tutti. Hi, I just want to say thank you for hosting me. Milan's such a wonderful city and it's just been an absolute joy to be here. So raise your hand if you've tried VR, just to kind of get a sense of how many of you have tried it. All right, very cool. So I have something to work with. Great. So looking back, I got into VR at a very early age. It was 1993. I was 6 years old, and although I didn't know it at the time, I was planting the seeds for what would become a lifelong obsession with computers, storytelling, and movies as a whole. And on my father's Macintosh, I spent countless hours playing a game called The Manhole. The graphics back then were very crude, and this game was developed by Cyan Incorporated. They're better known as being the creators of Myst. And this world basically was one where, you know, a child like myself could explore at his or her own leisure. And exploration was its own reward. There was no end, there was no goal, and it's an early example of a non-game. A type of game that really doesn't have a winner, doesn't really have a conclusion. A digital experience that allowed players a greater degree of freedom and self-expression through free-form play. And at this point, I probably would have gone on to become a programmer, but you see, the year was 1993, and there was another transformative experience for me that year. And that experience was Jurassic Park. And let me tell you, this movie pulverized me. It pulverized my 6-year-old brain, and it was my gateway drug into the world of cinema. And I became obsessed with it. And basically, I was just put on this earth to make movies, and I was convinced of that because of this one film. And, you know, so let's just talk briefly about movies. It's the medium that I fell in love with, but in a lot of ways it hasn't changed. We've been telling and experiencing stories through glowing rectangles for the better part of the last 140 years. And my first effort as a director, serious effort, was a short film that I directed called The Candidate. It's a traditional film in the strictest sense. It was shot entirely on film, 0 visual effects. It was even colored photochemically, spliced by hand. The titles were done on an optical printer.
A man's worth can be judged by the caliber.
And The Candidate is just about this underhanded company man named Burton Brunzer, who joins a secret society, and by doing so, becomes immersed in forces beyond his control. And this is the opening scene of The Candidate right here.
Why the fuck he's 5 minutes late?
Let's get at it.
Watching Hayes twist, seeing his pale cheeks go crimson.
Kids can do this. All right.
One of the only perks throughout the embarrassment he's putting me through.
The Candidate opened the door for me to tackle a more ambitious project, one with a lot of visual effects. And so in 2012, I set up a project at Warner Brothers called Rise. And after 2 years of script development and writing, the studio tasked me with putting together a proof of concept short film. And so Rise is more or less about a robot uprising in the future, but it's told from the robot's perspective. So as these sentients in the world of Rise develop emotional symmetry to humans, they're targeted for elimination, and a revolution for their survival begins. So while piecing together the short film, I had the privilege of working with an amazing team of visual effects artists from all over the world. And while I was in post-production, my visual effects supervisor and I, took a look at everything that we had developed for the visual effects, and we asked ourselves, how cool would it be to just take one frame from the movie even and step inside as if we were a part of this world, to be in the film, through virtual reality. And thankfully for us, this question kind of came about right around the same time that the Oculus dev kits were shipping on Kickstarter. And so while we were working on the flat version of Rise, what we call the Flatty, we set out to create this very ambitious virtual reality experience. And so we started with the scene that you just saw, the interrogation. And using LiDAR scans and HDR photography, we started off with wanting to recreate just this one environment in VR. So we spent a day in this set, and we just took a bunch of photos, LiDAR scans, and through a very painstaking process, we created a digital duplicate of this environment. So what you're seeing here is completely computer-generated, running in real time in game engine. And then beyond the set, we scanned our characters. We scanned the props that Weta had built for us. And the result was more or less a tech demo that we showed at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2014. Through the process of making Rise, I was forced to think about storytelling in a different way. And I had to throw out everything that I had learned in film school completely out the window. And in the process of doing this, I learned something important about this new medium. I learned that VR is a medium that has more in common with ordinary life than it does with any film or video game. So allow me to explain. When you watch a movie, you sit in a dark room for 120 minutes. And if the movie is good, you have an emotional experience. The movie ends, the credits roll, and by the time you make it to your car across the parking lot, you feel like you've learned something important, that you've gained some sort of deep understanding about the world. And that's if the movie's good. And so through film, we've come to learn a lot about injustice, alienation, triumph, love. Films work under the assumption that life is never properly dramatic enough, but the truth is that life is dramatic. You see, you have these big season finale moments. In any given week, you can have a triumph, a failure, confess your love, make an enemy, be caught in a lie, make amends, have sex, break up. It never cuts to a commercial break. There are never to be continues. We exist constantly surrounded by the repercussions of the last trillion things that we've done. And for me, this is the soul of VR. So going back to films, if this is what VR is in its essence, then what are movies? Well, I believe that films are an impression of these real-life moments, very much like Monet's famous haystack paintings. Films give us the impression that we are witnessing an almost real spectacle. These impressions of reality that we perceive through a veil. So the veil of film grain, depth of field, motion blur, artificial lighting at 24 frames per second. So what does this mean for filmmakers? How do we graduate from giving an impression of reality to then giving an expression of that same reality? Well, the truth is that directors have already been doing this. The answer has been in front of us this whole time. Directors like Stanley Kubrick here, basically manipulate their actors on a level that I believe VR needs to for its users. Stanley Kubrick covered the war room table in Dr. Strangelove with green felt to make his actors feel as if they were playing a game of chance with people's lives. And the film was shot in black and white, so the audience never knew this. Or Michael Mann putting his actors through weapons training so that when it came time to shoot the film, his actors actually felt lethal in those crucial moments. Or Ridley Scott building these incredible and elaborate sets that were so detailed and immersive that it must have been an absolute treat for somebody like Sigourney Weaver to walk onto the set of the Nostromo and feel as if she was actually in this world. Or Steven Spielberg reconstructing these historical events in excruciating detail that it must have convinced anybody who maybe was an actor in this D-Day sequence that maybe they were experiencing at least maybe like the clipped fingernail of what it must have been like on that day. So what this all boils down to is that with VR, you direct the audience as if they're the actors in your story. And if done right, VR has the power to empower people. Not just make them feel empowered, but actually empower them. My first commercial VR project was Alien Covenant in Utero. And, from the very beginning, this project for me felt like an exercise of the theories I just mentioned. I was approached by 20th Century Fox and Ridley Scott to direct a virtual reality experience that would introduce a new creature in the Alien universe, before the movie came out, the neomorph. And so in Utero, lets audiences experience the spine-bursting scene in Alien Covenant, but from a radically new point of view, that of the alien. Within Utero, I took to heart, no pun intended, the lessons of VR's ability to empower people. With the Alien franchise, we as the audience have more or less been on the receiving end of these creatures' ire. The aliens are menacing, they're terror-inducing, but we always sort of see them at a distance. They're evolved hunters, and at the same time, maybe misunderstood. A neomorph is able to see the unseen and perceive the hidden world just beyond our own. This idea prompted the concept of neomorph vision, where participants in this experience would see sound as sources of light. So here's a small segment of the experience. So what does the future hold? Well, when it comes to creating VR narratives, technology and art go hand in hand, like never before. And as I've been working as a director, I've also been working as a creative director at Neuralize, a VR tech startup in downtown LA. Our first VR project was Rise VR, but since 2014, we've been developing some new and exciting technology that is going to push the boundaries of what's capable in VR. And that technology is called Atom View. AtomView is a tool and technology that we created for raw volumetric data processing, color management, and delivery. And here's some real-time footage of what AtomView is capable of. So technology has come a long way since my watershed year of 1993. But the goals and aspirations of storytellers will remain the same. And so computers and film led me on my path, but today, all over the world, VR is offering a new generation theirs. I'm excited to see where that leads. Thank you. So if anybody has any questions, I'll do a Q&A with the time left. Anybody? Okay, no questions? All right. All right, thank you.